My name is Ariel Posen. I'm a singer-songwriter and guitar player. Before becoming an artist, I spent the majority of my career being a guitar player for artists, for bands, in the studio, and on the road. Once I began my own solo career, I realized that I was shaped by my experience and that there were some interesting stories to tell. I wanted to ask a few colleagues and friends of mine who have had a somewhat similar but different road about their story and their experiences. I think there's a bigger story to tell here, and I think this is something that can be really helpful to a lot of musicians and artists on a similar path. So without further ado, on today's episode we have Carleigh Aikins. So what initially drew you into becoming a performing musician? What inspired you?
I started as a kid working in theater, so I was primarily like a theater arts nerd, and my first jobs when I was like 9 and 10 were with theater companies. So immediately, if we're talking about like collaborative spirit, that really harnessed that, that I loved being a part of a company and a part of a community. And then my brother, who's like a year and a half older than me, started playing drums and playing with some of the guys that we all grew up with. And he eventually formed a band, and I was doing theater, and I kind of didn't feel exactly like I fit in with that crowd, I think maybe I wasn't prepared to be as disciplined or something as it required. I mean, there's so many women my age who are like triple threats, and I wasn't like the greatest dancer or anything, but I really just loved to sing and act. And so my brother was in this band, and then I kind of like inserted myself in there, and just loved that I could write lyrics and I could actually be like expressing my own words and feelings. But yeah, it came to a crossroads when it was like, you can either do theater productions or you can commit to this band, because for a while I was trying to do both, and it was like, cool, I got a peace out band for like 2 months while I do a play or whatever, and that just didn't work. So I think I just was like, this is more fun, and I feel more at home, to singing in a band and being in bars.
Yeah.
I just felt more at home than trying to be this like, well-rounded dancer, vocalist, actress. And it was just less pressure and more fun. So that's how it began. And we started a band that, was being well received in Toronto and whatnot. And that was like 15 years ago or something.
What band was that?
That band was called Fox Jaws. And so we came up in the like Toronto scene, in the early mid 2000s, to age myself. And then I was still living in Barrie. Then that band disbanded. Some of the guys wanted to have kids, ironically, and I was like, I want to, as the woman in the band, was like, no, don't have children.
I want to hit the road.
Let's keep touring. So I was kind of devastated when that ended, and I felt like I didn't know what to do or how I would, start my own act or anything like that. So I decided to go to art school. I applied for OCAD, for the OCAD Fine Arts program here in Toronto, and moved here. And I had grown up with, around a bunch of musicians who had moved from Barrie to Toronto to pursue their music careers. One of them being Afi Yervanen, and he asked me to join his band Bahamas. So that's really when it started that I became, like a supporting hired gun, backing vocalist, although it was like myself and Felicity Williams and Jason Tate. It was a very small unit, just drums and guitar and vocals. So I was a background singer, but it felt like each of us were an integral piece of the sound,
For sure.
And that just I dropped out of art school after the first year. If he was like, don't go back to school, let's just go on the road. And I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. So yeah, then we proceeded to just like a whole whirlwind of like the Bar Chords album cycle, touring all over the world. And that's really where I kind of like cut my teeth. And I was young and still learning a lot about what it takes to just be on the road, and was learning a lot of lessons that way too. So yeah, after that, then I guess it just kind of became known that I was, a good backing vocalist, and I started getting other gigs with other acts after that. But long and short of it, that's how it kind of began.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of has, it's so funny because everyone's like got a different story, but literally everyone's story is the same in a weird way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you were doing Bahamas for, I'm assuming, like a few years.
Yeah, for a few years, like quite straight, and then
some other people, just like it
yeah,
became that like hired gun thing.
Yeah, and then I got a call from a band in Colorado who I'd met. Like I met them at South by Southwest, and we had a bunch of mutual friends.
Right.
They're called Paper Bird, and they'd been a band for about 8 years when I joined. They asked me to join. They were a band with 3 leading women vocalists, female vocalists, one of which was leaving to do her own solo thing. And so they called and asked if I would kind of, they at that point had tours booked, and they were like, can you step in and just learn the songs, and then we'll, eventually sit down to write a record that includes you and your songs. So, excuse me, that was a exciting opportunity for me to come and live in the States and to be working, it was interesting because I was stepping into a tight unit with a really long history who'd already built their career and their name. And as, they were so welcoming, and they supported me and gave me the ability to like step up to the front again, but not like have to lead the whole thing. It was like a shared duty. So it was a nice reintroduction into like being a front person. But at the same time, there was always this sense that it like really wasn't mine still, because they had built all of this, and I was just kind of like, now I get to go along for the ride. Albeit like we built a lot, in the time that I was there as well in the band. But there was always this sense of like, is this really fully mine? Because I hadn't started it from the ground up. So still, it was like being a front person, but it wasn't exactly mine or a solo endeavor.
I feel
that
you.
I'd started from scratch. So, yeah.
So now fast forwarding a bit more, like when did the shift in your career direction begin for you? From like starting to be like, I'm doing a solo thing.
Well, Paper Bird, at around their like 10 or 11 year mark, we'd made this record with John Oates and David Kalmusky in Nashville, and it was really exciting, but another member of the band left, and then it just became like, is this even Paper Bird now, with 2 or 3 of the founding members gone. And I think they all just wanted to put that part of their life to rest. And sadly, like, I wanted to continue. I was like, I just got here. Let's keep going. We just did all this work and gained this momentum. But, I had to accept that they had a lot of baggage and hurt and stuff that comes with being a band for 11 years, And I had to just accept that they wanted to put that to rest and move on. So I came back to Canada and, continued working with the acts that I do here. And my friend Gord Gardenia, who's a amazing jazz guitarist, I know him through Dan Mangan. He played with Dan Mangan for years. He called me up one day and was like, I'm writing grants like for Canada Council, and we should make you one to do a solo record. And I was like, okay. I was still kind of recovering from like the breakup of the band and readjusting back to life here. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. And he kind of helped me to assemble something. And then I was on tour working for Dan Mangan and found out that I'd gotten this recording grant. And so that kind of like validated me in a lot of big ways. And it was like, oh, it's possible, because I didn't have the resources or the time, to take the time to like really focus on these songs that I'd been writing over the years and to really shape them into something that could be an album. So sorry. So you had been writing a bunch just like for yourself? Yeah.
During all that time outside of Paper Bird and stuff? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, like the way Paper Bird worked was that there were 6 songwriters. So we, we're constantly writing and contributing to the pool of potential songs. So even from that process, I had you know, a bunch of tunes that I'd worked on. And yeah, I'd go and do like writing retreats. Like I'd go stay in LA and write for a bit or whatever. So I had like a little collection of stuff, but it was because I'm a vocalist and not exactly a multi-instrumentalist. They were very like rudimentary, kind of a lot of like layers of my voice as the instrumentation. So they weren't fully realized tunes. And I knew that it would take a lot of time to get them to that level. So this grant basically afforded me that time to really dig in and do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So tell me about like the first steps you took when it finally came to making this record. And would you say that you were like fairly self-motivated, or were you feeling not, you know, were you urged along by friends, other people, other parties?
I think you always need that. I'm so used to being in a band, you know, and we can like encourage each other. So I really was like, it was hard. And I think I suffer from a lot of imposter syndrome and, you know, doubting that I can do it all on my own. And that's all just like fear-based bullshit.
So what were those like first steps starting the record like?
Very vulnerable and scary. You know, I presented my songs before to Paper Bird, obviously, and they were always like amazing and super supportive, but it's different when you're kind of presenting them to like your childhood idols that you've grown up with, you know. It's scary to be like, here's what I did. Do you think it's good enough? And so they kind of helped me dissect and edit and just for a few of the songs just to get the ball rolling. And then I continued to write and, you know, do some co-writing with people. And so the first steps were going to Baldwin to Aaron Goldstein's place and just recording like 5 songs just to get, you know, to get things rolling. Then I approached Marcus Paquin, who's a Montreal producer and engineer. So he'd done a bunch of like of my female friends' albums. So I kind of, and he's also like done Arcade Fire and like all that cool shit. But
yeah.
So I approached him with those demos and he agreed to work with me. So we did a bunch of recording at Mixart in Montreal and just like would assemble little groups. Marcus would play bass. Evan Ty, who's like the drummer for Patrick Watson, had a big hand in helping me with everything. So he did the drumming, but it would be like small groups and small segments working kind of song by song, which is again a different process than I'm used to. I'm used to like, you go out, you work the songs on stage, you play them for a while, and then you go into the studio, right?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, that's what I've been used to. So yeah, that was an interesting process to kind of be like, never performed these songs before. Let's just build them from the ground up, which is kind of fun, you know, because there's whatever possibility. You're not contained to like how you have already fleshed them out on stage, you know? You kind of can just like start from scratch and let them go wherever they want to go, I guess.
I think they're both like awesome ways to approach a project like that. Like there's no rule book, of course. I'm with you. I'm used to like, well, you know, I've got these songs, maybe I've demoed them, but I've played most of them live for a while, or like I've sat with these little shitty demos I've made and have demo-itis, so like I'm pretty clear of how they should sound to start kind of from nothing. Mm-hmm. Terrifying, but also kind of exciting too. So I love either option.
Yeah, I enjoyed the process. I still have yet to like perform any of these songs really. Like I've done one show at the Dakota with 5 of the songs. That was like so exciting and went over so well, and then it was like, and they shall never be performed again because of a pandemic.
Right.
So,
such shit timing.
Yeah, but again, like I said, it was nice to just not feel the pressure to have to like, you know, also be spending all your resources on like getting a show on its feet and performing them. I could just focus on like the recording part of it, you know, and then be like, okay, well, we'll assemble a band when the time comes to do that. Yeah. Kind
of nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you're really just getting started.
I guess so.
As in terms of like performing this stuff live and
yeah.
and really putting it into motion, and releasing this music. But like now that you've spent at least, like, I'm assuming the past year working on this stuff, right?
Yeah. It's been like 2 years.
Or
now.
2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just looking back now, do you have any grand insight into the music industry that you think would benefit others who are maybe pursuing something similar, who are like always in bands, always side men, side women, hired guns, whatever you want to call them, now fully solo?
I think a lot of like the themes on this record are, again, just trying to like, address that I'm my own worst enemy and my own biggest critic. And I think I've felt, particularly women might feel like there's like a shelf life for your career, or your, not only like in your life, like there's a timeline for you to have babies and you should be married by now. I'm 37. I just turned 37. And I've just been single, kind of focusing on my career, because if I were to settle down, you have to make a lot of sacrifices on either side,
For sure.
And so I've been kind of self-conscious of like, have I missed my moment? Like, did I wait too long to do this? And I don't think that it's never too late to express your own stories and to dive into yourself. So I guess a lot of the insight I've gained is like, I have to stop telling myself that it's too late. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I've learned a lot, through the process of waiting this long. If I had tried to do this when I was 20, I would not fucking be prepared at all. And I would not have the skill set I now have to like lead a band, to be a leader, or to be the one calling the shots if I were in my early 20s still. So yeah, I think for anyone who's feeling like, oh, I've waited too long and it's too late to go out on my own, it's like, it's never too late, I don't think. It's scary, and it's always going to be scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, but as far as the industry goes, I don't know. It's like, it's an ever-changing beast, that we're constantly trying to adapt to, and you have to be so innovative and be, like you said, like, if you were still doing all your side work, you wouldn't have the time and energy that it takes to like to be doing your solo thing that requires like all of your time and constantly producing fucking content and all of that stuff, which sometimes is daunting to me when you're doing it on your own. But just remember that there's tons of people that love you and want to help you and believe in you, and you just have to ask for the help. So even in a solo endeavor, you're always collaborating, It's never just you. You're the face of it, which is scary, but it's always a collaboration no matter what you're doing,
Aside from there being a pandemic, because you've still been active working hard on this, and you would have been doing that regardless. How have your work priorities shifted? And like, what do you think about most when it comes to a project?
Well, it's been really nice to like, actually have the time and space to really just every day be like, take time out of every single day to like work on this thing. So I feel like I'm hyper focused right now more than I've ever been. And I feel like I could have really allowed myself to be distracted, and it probably would have taken another 2 years to get this done, because I'd be like, oh, there's a tour that I have to go on, for another 2 months. So it's actually been a blessing in that way, because I have no other choice but to like work on this, because I know I would have it's really hard for me to like say no, when we're hired guns, it's hard to say no to work when it comes. Oh. You just feel like you have to take it because you don't know when the next thing will come. So I think it would have been really difficult for me to just say like, no, I can't go on the road for 2 months. I have to be focusing on this. And now I'm just forced to do that. So that's pretty cool in its own silver lining kind of way. And yeah, just trying to like really just trust myself and to not get too like self-conscious. It's so hard not to, like, I'll do something and I'll submit it to the managers or whatever, and then there's always a point where I'm like second guessing, like just sitting and lying in bed at night, like, I got to change that. It's not cool enough. It's not, just like all this self-doubt.
Yeah, we all do that.
Yeah.
And you know what? That means that you care.
I do care a lot.
People that don't, in my opinion, at least, like, aren't tossing and turning or like second guessing every aspect, like things that don't even matter.
Yeah.
I should have redone that one little, that the way I went up on that line. It's so, like, to you, if it matters to you, that like it matters, even if it's nothing. And like those things, if it's just a sign of actually giving a shit.
Yeah. It's really hard to like know when to stop and to like edit your, to just say it's done and it is a moment in time. And it's
the hardest thing. Yeah.
That's the toughest thing. Right. So it's hard when there's nobody else to say that to you. Like, you're the decider of that. So it really, I'm just trying to just trust the work that was done and know that it was a moment in time. And if I don't think it's good enough, the next time I'll try harder or try something different. But yeah, it's really just like accepting that the work's done,
Yeah. Okay. So as an artist,
yeah,
how much of your work would you qualify as innovative? And like, how are you trying to keep things fresh? And, when I say innovative, I don't mean like you're trying to change the world or like, just like for you internally to fully give it your voice and like be original.
Yeah, I think that because I'm like a backing vocalist, my songs are very densely, like, so many layers of vocals. And I think trying to learn how to edit that in a way, but also keep that presence, because that is like the essence of what I do. I'm a singer, and so it's been super fun to like create all these lush background parts. Also, it's going to be hard when I have to assemble a band and I need 6 singers, but I guess I'll just use tracks. But I think with this record, because it's like it's a hodgepodge of like songs that I wrote over time.
Right.
There's a lot of different flavors mixed into it, and I think it's kind of hard to define the genre of it. I think that's what's been challenging, to be like, what is this music? How would you define this? Adult alternative, I guess, when you like don't really have a name for it.
Yeah.
And I think that will probably be confusing for some listeners, to be like, whoa, this song is like a soul song, and then this song's like a dance synth pop song or whatever. But I've come to just like not really give a shit about defining it in this way. Like, the defining element of it is my voice that is continual through it all. And I don't need to like pigeonhole that into anything. And I think the industry like wants you to do that. It's like, who can we compare you to? What do we already know that is like this? So it's hard to feel innovative when you just have to be like, oh, it's like this and this. Like, you need a reference point to market this. So I have to, say it's like something else, when it's like, this is just like me. I don't know what it's supposed to. There's elements of so many influences in it,
For sure.
And I think at times I've been like, oh, I need to like streamline this more so that it's more palatable for people, so that they can process what's going on here. And it's like, I'm not going to like set out to write a song like somebody else. Of course I'll use those influences, but I'm trying not to let that influence what I'm doing too much, I guess, if that makes sense.
So now that you have hindsight, would you change any of your decisions along the way that brought you to where you are now?
I think, like I said,
you kind of answered it actually earlier.
Before, but I keep going through that thing of like, oh, I wish I'd done this earlier when I was a bit younger, and and I always come back to like, no, this is when you were ready to do it. It's okay. Yeah. And it's and yeah, I think just as a woman, I feel kind of like I get it. Nobody wants to see like a 40-year-old woman, which is such bullshit, because we there's so many artists
bullshit,
over 40, but these are like the fucked up thoughts that go through people's heads, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't think I could have done it any differently, because I don't think I was ready to. And, you know, I was part of a bunch of other projects leading up to this, and there wasn't time for it until now. And like I said, I've kind of been forced. I started the process, but if I hadn't been forced into isolation with no other option, so I'm really grateful that I kind of, you know, was strong-armed into like, just get this done finally, and so that you can say you did it finally. Stop wishing that it had happened sooner, and just do it now and get it done, and move on to the next best thing, I guess. Yeah, I wouldn't have done anything differently. I mean, there's a lot of things there's a lot of things, you know, as you're a touring musician, where you're like, I wish I had behaved differently or something. But
sure.
I think the work that I've done has created this like expansive network of people that I can, you know, learn from and tap into and be inspired by. And to have that kind of assembly of support and people and friends all over the world that can encourage you is priceless. And I wouldn't have had that if I just kind of, I don't know. I'm just grateful that I got to ride on the coattails of a bunch of artists who let me come along on their ride and learn from them, and, you know, meet a lot of amazing people that I always can benefit from those relationships now. So I'm happy with how my career's gone. And there's still lots to come, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
there.